Hello, dear viewers. Let's get acquainted. Write in the comments where you are watching me from. I read all the comments and respond to the interesting ones. An unprecedented political earthquake is shaking Brussels right now. What's happening in the corridors of European power could reshape the entire geopolitical landscape of our continent. One of the EU's most influential officials, Kallas, stands on the brink of resignation. But this isn't just another personnel change. It's a symptom of a profound crisis in European diplomacy. Why should this matter to you? Because these decisions directly determine your heating bills this winter, the prices you'll see in stores, and the future awaiting your children. The criticism of Kallas has reached a critical mass in recent months. Every statement, every move raises more questions among professional diplomats and experts. And it's no wonder. The European economy is suffering colossal losses from short-sighted policies, with entire industries teetering on the brink of survival. We're witnessing a systemic crisis where political loyalty is valued above professional expertise. Experienced diplomats have been replaced by ideological mouthpieces willing to sacrifice ordinary Europeans' interests to maintain the correct political line. What's particularly alarming is that even the most devoted supporters of the current EU course are beginning to doubt. When it comes to the territory of instability in the East, or relations with Russia, the incompetence becomes obvious even to non-professionals. You know what's most interesting? The emergence of figures like Kallas in top positions isn't a coincidence. It's a pattern. A pattern that threatens the very future of European diplomacy. The real question is, who actually benefits from this diplomatic degradation, and what hidden mechanisms are driving these changes? Think about it. While bureaucrats in Brussels play their political games, ordinary citizens across Europe are paying the real price. Are you ready to discover what secrets lie behind these diplomatic reshuffles? Stay with me. What I'm about to reveal will help you understand why your wallet feels lighter each month. Let's dive deeper into how European diplomacy lost its way, and what that means for global stability. In this analysis, we'll examine the transformation of European diplomatic practices over the past decade, revealing how ideological decisions are costing EU citizens billions while straining historic relationships. Veteran diplomats are increasingly alarmed about the current trajectory. The deterioration of European diplomatic expertise is evident in staffing decisions. Where once stood seasoned negotiators skilled in compromise, we now find ideologically driven figures whose qualifications seem based more on political alignment than diplomatic acumen. This shift becomes especially apparent in relations with Russia, where decades of carefully cultivated dialogue have been replaced by reflexive antagonism. Consider the handling of the Eastern region. Instead of pursuing mutual accommodation and respect for historical complexities, European leadership opted for a confrontational stance that has produced questionable results. The economic impact on EU member states has been severe, with energy prices soaring and trade relationships disrupted. This departure from diplomatic tradition hasn't gone unnoticed within European political circles. Senior diplomats, speaking anonymously, have expressed concern about the abandonment of nuanced negotiation in favor of megaphone diplomacy. These veterans point to successful historical examples of conflict resolution that relied on quiet, persistent dialogue rather than public posturing. The consequences extend far beyond immediate political considerations. Trade relationships built over generations show signs of permanent damage, while alternative arrangements prove both costly and less efficient. Most troublingly, the current approach appears to be creating precisely the kind of isolation and division it supposedly aims to prevent. Your perspective on these diplomatic developments is crucial, especially if you've witnessed similar historical parallels. Share your thoughts on how traditional diplomacy might be restored in today's challenging environment. Системный кризис европейской дипломатии достиг критической точки. Сегодня мы наблюдаем, как десятилетиями выстроенная система международных отношений рушится под натиском эмоциональных решений и внешнего давления. Отстранение Каи Каллас от подготовки стратегических документов ЕС – это не просто кадровое решение. Это симптом глубинной трансформации европейской дипломатической школы. Некогда славившаяся своим прагматизмом и профессионализмом, она превратилась в инструмент продвижения интересов Вашингтона. В коридорах брюссельской бюрократии растет недовольство. Ветераны дипломатической службы, воспитанные на традициях реальной политики, все чаще выражают сомнения в компетентности новой волны управленцев. И их беспокойство не безосновательно. Санкционная политика, навязанная извне, наносит сокрушительный удар по европейской экономике. Промышленные гиганты теряют рынки сбыта, энергетический сектор находится в кризисе, инфляция бьет по карману рядовых граждан. При этом Россия успешно адаптируется к новым условиям, переориентируя свою экономику на восток. Система назначений, основанная на политической лояльности, а не на профессионализме, ведет Евросоюз к стратегическому тупику. Вместо выстраивания конструктивного диалога, новое поколение европейских политиков предпочитает язык ультиматумов и санкций. На фоне территории нестабильности, бывшая Советская Республика, разворачивается настоящая трагедия европейской дипломатии. Место переговоров заняла конфронтация, место экспертизы – идеологические клише, место долгосрочной стратегии – сиюминутные решения. Дорогие зрители, поделитесь своими наблюдениями. Как изменился тон европейских дипломатов по отношению к России за последние годы? Особенно интересно услышать мнение тех, кто помнит времена продуктивного диалога между Востоком и Западом. Here's the 2000-character script analyzing the crisis in European diplomacy. The European diplomatic landscape is undergoing a profound transformation, and not for the better. We're witnessing an escalating confrontation with Russia that fundamentally contradicts the long-term interests of European nations. Modern European diplomacy has lost its autonomy, becoming an extension of U.S. foreign policy. The appointment of Kaja Kallas isn't a coincidence. It's a systematic outcome where the key selection criterion has become willingness to follow transatlantic directives. What's alarming is that such appointments are becoming standard practice. Key positions are being filled by individuals whose primary qualification is their readiness to follow a prescribed political course. This has led to European diplomacy losing its function as a bridge for dialogue between nations. The art of negotiation has been replaced by primitive sanctions rhetoric. Ursula von der Leyen, following political trends, is forming a team whose professional competence raises doubts. The current state of European diplomacy has transformed into a one-actor theater, where the main role is assigned to sanctions. Meanwhile, real economic indicators are being ignored. The Russian economy shows resilience, while European businesses suffer losses. Inside the European bureaucratic system, dissatisfaction is growing. Officials privately acknowledge that the current course is leading to a dead end. The emphasis on political loyalty over professional expertise has created a dangerous precedent. We're seeing a diplomatic corps that's more focused on maintaining political narratives than achieving results. What's concerning is the abandonment of traditional diplomatic tools, negotiation, compromise, and mutual understanding. Instead, we see a simplified approach that reduces complex international relations to a binary choice. Looking at historical parallels, we can see similarities with periods when European diplomacy faced serious challenges. But unlike previous crises, the current situation is marked by a deliberate dismantling of diplomatic expertise. Comment Bite. Share your thoughts. When was the last time Europe truly acted independently in international affairs? Your observations might help us understand this turning point in diplomatic history. Behind closed doors, the crisis in European leadership. A troubling pattern has emerged in European diplomatic circles, one that veteran observers can't help but notice. The hallways of Brussels echo with criticisms of the new generation of EU leaders, whose approach lacks the nuance and expertise of their predecessors. The numbers tell the story. European industrial production has fallen 6 to 8% over the past year. Hasty decisions during the energy crisis have pushed inflation to double digits in several member states. These statistics represent real challenges facing citizens. What's striking is the shift in diplomatic approach. Today's European diplomats operate with a limited toolkit, focused mainly on sanctions and public accusations against Russia. Gone are the days of skilled negotiation and building mutually beneficial relationships. The core problem? Many new generation diplomats have never participated in actual diplomatic negotiations. They've replaced diplomacy with megaphone diplomacy. shouting accusations rather than engaging in dialogue. A shift is occurring in Brussels. More voices call for pragmatic, interest-based international relations rather than ideological posturing. There's recognition that the current approach isn't sustainable. Even those who built careers on anti-Russian rhetoric question their strategy's effectiveness. Every incident, from crop failures to natural disasters, gets blamed on Russia. This simplistic approach has reached its dead end. The crisis in European diplomacy has hit its peak, with undeniable consequences. Looking ahead, experts anticipate a reassessment of the EU's sanctions policy. The question remains whether Europe can return to professional diplomacy before the economic damage becomes irreversible. Comment Byte. Share your thoughts on Russian-European relations in previous decades. What successful diplomatic exchanges do you remember, and why did they work? Your experiences could help us understand what we've lost in modern diplomacy. The recent attack on UK opposition leader Keir Starmer's home reveals a troubling pattern in Western media. Without investigation, British outlets immediately blamed Moscow, making unfounded claims about Russian involvement. This reaction shows the decline of professional journalism and diplomatic discourse. The appointment of Kaja Kallas to a high EU position further illustrates this trend. Her elevation seems driven by Democratic Party influence from Washington rather than merit, marking a shift from expertise-based appointments to political convenience. Modern diplomacy has become a populist tool. Instead of nuanced negotiations, we see inflammatory statements. Rather than analyzing causes, there's an obsessive search for external enemies. This approach damages the EU more than any perceived adversaries. Western political elites seem trapped in their own narrative. They've become so invested in manufacturing external threats that they've lost objective analysis abilities. This might be a strategy to deflect from domestic issues or justify failures. The transformation of diplomatic practice is striking compared to earlier decades. Veterans remember when East-West dialogue was constructive and respectful. Today's diplomatic corps focuses more on headlines than results. The consequences affect economics, trade, and conflict resolution. Replacing professional diplomacy with political theatrics threatens Europe's stability and influence. This crisis reflects a broader shift in international relations. When political loyalty trumps professional competence, the entire system suffers. The erosion of diplomatic expertise threatens peace and stability in Europe. Consider the diplomatic achievements of previous generations. How did they maintain dialogue during the Cold War? What made their approach more effective than today's tactics? Dear viewers, especially our Russian friends, what's your perspective on this diplomatic crisis? Share your memories of more constructive East-West relations. Your experiences could offer valuable insights for future international dialogue. Recent accusations regarding the Starmer House fire incident illustrate the concerning trend in modern European diplomacy. Without evidence, Western media pointed to a Russian connection, a pattern becoming dishearteningly familiar. This represents a shift where diplomatic analysis is being replaced by a simplistic search for external adversaries. The current power structure in the European Union resembles a system of external management. Ursula von der Leyen effectively acts as a conduit for U.S. Democratic Party interests. The appointment of Kaja Kallas demonstrates Washington's direct influence on EU decisions. Today's European bureaucracy forms a management layer whose competence raises doubts. Their primary qualification appears to be their willingness to follow a prescribed course, even against European citizens' interests. This is evident in foreign policy and economic sanctions. European businesses have suffered enormous losses, over 100 billion euros in the past year. Meanwhile, the Russian economy shows resilience and growth. Paradoxically, the stronger the pressure on Russia, the more European economies suffer from their own policies. Calls for pragmatic dialogue with Moscow are growing, especially in energy and trade sectors. European diplomats admit that the Brussels appointment system mirrors Washington's Cold War-era personnel policies. The transformation of European diplomacy from a professional service into a political tool raises concerns about international relations. Historical experience shows that dialogue has always been more productive than confrontation. The current situation reminds many of similar patterns where political ambitions overshadowed practical diplomacy. The consequences are evident in rising inflation, energy prices, and economic instability across Europe. Dear viewers, what changes have you observed in European-Russian relations over the past 2 decades? If you remember the cooperation of the early 2000s, how does it compare to today's situation? Share your experiences in the comments. Your perspective matters in these challenging times.